outskirts of the city back toward her family's estate. Of course, he'd never betray us. I've been a pet of his since the day I was born. Satisfied for the moment, Amos nodded and leaned deeper into the seat cushion, plush velvet allowing him to rest taxed limbs, and breathe, and try not to wonder what had just occurred to him as Charlotte inspected the rosewood case in her arms. Was she a sort of pet to Amos? Or worse, was he a mere pet to her too? How else could this little slip of a 12-year-old heiress convince a farmer's son only 3 years older than she to barter designer gowns to buy back the beloved cello her mother had sold? And he to obtain books he'd never have been able to afford in his lifetime? Amos had no answers. All he knew was by some miracle they'd not been discovered, neither for this mad excursion to the city, nor for the secret friendship they'd kept up since childhood. If your mother finds out I sold your dresses, she won't. And you didn't. I sold them. And if she sees them in the shop window tomorrow? Mother never comes into Coventry. Besides, I've so many she'll never notice they're gone. Only my maid would, and she won't tell, especially if I slip her a little something extra from our next London shopping excursion. Charlotte waved the notion off, then went back to hugging the top of the case against her shoulder. She'd not soon let it go again. What did I tell you? Designer names like Worth and Lucille would be enough to convince the shopkeeper you knew more than he on the matter of their value. And here is my treasure, back in my arms. How can I ever thank you? No need, Amos whispered, smiling to himself. It was more your doing than mine anyway. I didn't know half of what I was saying about the cello, countering the shopkeeper with it's a Betz, but not a Stradivari model. Charlotte was cleverer than her privileged upbringing gave her credit for. She had tracked down the shop her mother had sold the cello to, convinced their coachman to take them all the way into Coventry to fetch the valuable cello back, and feigned a headache so she and Amos could slip away while the Earl and Countess entertained manor guests for dinner. It was a plan worth appreciating, even if he'd have a crick in his neck and sore biceps the rest of the week. All I had to do was cast your lot's posh speech out and the shopkeeper bit. Pride convinced him he needed what Hanover's shop didn't have down the street, more than holding on to a used cello and some old books. Yes, the books! I'd nearly forgotten. She gazed down at the prize in the canvas lump at their feet. What did you get us? Everything you asked for. Jane Austen, Emily Dickinson, the Brontes, Keats, and Kipling, though your mother wouldn't approve. Indeed, she would not approve of a young lady filling her head with frivolities from romance novels when she could be learning the noble art of how to marry well. She doesn't see that Austen could actually be an instruction manual toward that end. Charlotte shifted the cello to one side and pulled a volume free from the bag. Dombey and Son? Got a few I wanted too. For the risk, of course. If I'm going to own a shop one day... We're going to own it. She tipped her brow. Remember? An even split. That's what we said. Aye. If we're going to own a bookshop, we'd better read what we sell. Dickens seemed as good a place to start as any. I'd have advocated for Austen. She tried to look stern, but gave up and softened her lips into a smile as she handed the book over. But seeing as you've returned my treasure today, I cannot be cross. Though I won't sleep until I can slip away to the glasshouse and play all day tomorrow. She paused, then with a softer tone asked, You will meet me? I'll be there. The glasshouse, their hideaway near Amos's farm on Holt Manor, in the garden bordering Charlotte's family estate. It would be the perfect hiding spot for the cello her mother claimed was unseemly for a young lady of breeding. And it would shelter the books Amos's Dar said a farmer's son had no business wasting time over. But what did parents know? They believed each child had a position in the hierarchy of life, and ought to know what it was. Yet despite this, Charlotte and Amos had always managed to find a certain freedom in each other's company, she playing the cello to her heart's content, and he reading their books aloud, and neither thinking of how those days were numbered as calendar dates rolled by, or how contentment was simple, and neither a palace of plenty nor a humble farmhouse could define it. Amos's gaze drifted to the calloused hands in his lap without realization. When he felt her eyes upon him, he looked up and crossed his arms over his chest to hide rough palms.